Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this March 10th, 2021 meeting of the Hampton City School Board. Ms. Bowers, would you please call for the roll?
Ms. Lafanja?
Present.
Ms. Banks-Gray?
Here.
Ms. Cherry?
Here.
Dr. Mason? Mr. Samuels?
Present.
Dr. Woodhouse?
Here.
Mr. Kilgore?
Here. Let the record show that all board members are present except with the exception of Dr. Mason. At this time, I'd ask everyone to stand so that we can have our student representative, Paul Karnick, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now move on to section 1.02, adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion from Dr. Woodhouse. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Samuels. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Bowers, would you please call for the vote?
Ms. Lafanja?
Aye.
Ms. Banks-Gray?
Aye.
Ms. Cherry?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Dr. Woodhouse?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye. The motion passes. We now move on to section 2 of our meeting, recognitions. And this evening, our Executive Director of Public Relations and Marketing, Ms. Gorel, will be assisted by Vice Chair Dr. Woodhouse.
Well, thank you, Chair Kilgore, Vice Chair Woodhouse, members of the school board, Dr. Smith, and members of our Hampton Schools family. I'm very excited to be here this evening. This is our first in-person recognition since March of 2020. So this is a special group of individuals we'll be honoring this evening. As you can tell, it's set up a little bit differently than we have in the past. I'm going to be presenting on the floor. Dr. Woodhouse is going to be presenting from his seat. And then when we call up our honorees, we're going to ask them to line up on the floor beside me, and X marks the spot. So it is our pleasure this evening to recognize a special group of educators, our National Board Certified Teachers. Through National Board Certification, teachers demonstrate that their teaching meets the profession's standards for accomplished practice through a rigorous, peer-reviewed, and performance-based process, similar to professional certification in fields such as medicine. In achieving board certification, teachers prove their ability to advance student learning and achievement. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Woodhouse.
The National Board Certification is the most respected professional certification available in the education and provides numerous benefits to teachers, students, and schools. It was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished teachers and to generate ongoing improvement in schools nationwide. While the teacher licensure system sets the basic requirements to teach in each state, completion of the National Board Certification signifies that teachers have voluntarily gone much further. National Board Certified teachers have developed and demonstrated the advanced knowledge, skills, and practices required of an outstanding educator.
Thank you, Dr. Woodhouse. And this year, we are proud to recognize 2 Hampton City School teachers who have earned their National Board certifications for the very first time. So if you would please join me on the floor. We have Miss Kara Hart, who is a school counselor at Bryan Elementary School. I'm gonna give her her moment to walk down and join me on my X. And Miss Elizabeth Ross, a reading specialist at Cary Elementary School. In addition to the 2 professionals standing before us who are newly certified, Hampton City Schools is proud to recognize 4 additional staff members who earned their renewal certification. So would you please join us up front when your name is called? We have Sabrina Carnacy, who is a teacher librarian at Bryan Elementary School. We have Miss Sandy Diana, a second grade teacher at Armstrong School for the Arts. And you can tell we're recognizing teachers because instead of trying to go around us, she went the nice route of going all the way around. Let's give her another round of applause. We have Miss Heather Worrell, who is a director of school counseling at Phoenix Pre-K through 8 School. And we also have Miss Wanda L. Mitchell, our chorus and audio engineering teacher at the Hampton High School.
On behalf of our chair, Mr. Kilgore, the Hampton City School Board, and Superintendent Dr. Smith, please accept these certificates of recognition for this outstanding accomplishment. Ms. Goro is going to assist by passing out the certificates. Please know that we are very proud of each of you. We know the rigorous process to become a national board certified teacher is no simple task. It certainly takes a great deal of time and effort to accomplish. We thank each of you for pushing yourselves professionally to ultimately advance student learning and achievements for our Hampton City School students. So let's give this magnificent group of teachers a big round of applause.
Well, but before you all have a seat, you're so good, heading right back to your chairs. If we have any family members in the audience or special guests, could you please stand to also be recognized? We know you're out there. And you deserve that recognition as you've been very supportive of your honoree up here, as we know that that is a very hard and long process. And then we have one other person to recognize. We have Dr. Kim Richardson, if you would please stand. Dr. Richardson is Hampton City Schools Teacher Development Coordinator, and she oversees the National Board Certified Teacher Program and is a huge support to our teachers. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, Dr. Richardson. And then before you all sit, if everyone could give you one big round of applause. Congratulations. Very well deserved. Thank you. And Mr. Kilgore, that does conclude our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Gorel, and congratulations again to the teachers, and thank you, Dr. Richardson, for assisting with that. And now we move on to section 3 of our meeting, which is the consent agenda. It consists of personnel report number 21-05. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Cherry. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Dr. Woodhouse. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Bowers, would you please call for the vote?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. We now come to section 4 of our meeting, which is the public hearing on our FY22 budget, as well as the hearing of any delegations or presentations of any written communications. So I'll open up the public hearing portion of this meeting, and I believe I only have one request to speak.
Yes.
And that is from Ms. Karen Bowden.
Bowden.
Bowden. I see her. Yeah, you're up. Do you? Yeah, I'm gonna. Just to the, you just come right to the boom mics here if you don't mind. Yeah, right here to the boom mics. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm up. Chairman Kilgore, Dr. Woodhouse, school board members, Dr. Smith, and all others assembled, good evening. I am Karen Bowden, and I reside at 309 Dunn Circle in Hampton. I am the sheriff of Hampton, and I am a proud parent of a senior at Bethel High School. Go Bruins. Long time coming. God be the glory. The Hampton Sheriff's Office is a proud partner of the Hampton City Schools, and it just didn't start overnight. We've been with you guys through many initiatives, programs, and any other needs that we saw where we could fit in. We was there, and we will continue to do that. We've partnered with you with the Bethel Law Enforcement Academies, Lunch Buddies program, back to school supply drives, and that's just to name a few. As a business partner and a parent, that feels so good to say, parent of a Hampton City School student, I understand many of the challenges that we have all been faced with during COVID-19. The pandemic has compelled us to recreate and do many new things. And as we move forward, I think this goes without saying that very few of our children have performed at their highest level from home. And I'm speaking from experience. I have witnessed firsthand the demands of virtual learning versus the person or the child classroom setting with my son. There are times when he gets frustrated, and frankly, times I believe he's not doing his all. He would never state it, but I truly believe he's missing going to school and that environment that provides face-to-face instructions and socialization with his peers. And I would like to share with you as it relates to that socialization. I call him my social communicator. He's all over the school. When I walk into school, everybody knows him. And I know he misses that. With that being said, I want to commend you, Dr. Smith, and your team and school board members on the protocols presented for the 4-phase plan to return to school for students and staff in Hampton. A plan of this magnitude requires constant collaboration, and I'm speaking from experience. Because of your efforts through very different procedures and protocols, I know it has required your team to constantly plan and create additional procedures to carry out your day-to-day operations. And that will be the same in the law enforcement environment as well. We had to be very creative, and it doesn't stop. Day to day, something new comes up as it relates to this pandemic. And with that said, we have to be very creative because we have to think about the lives in our community and the effects that this pandemic is having on each and every one of us. I believe our children will have a much greater appreciation for the classroom when they departed in March of last year. My hope is that our children have seen a glimpse of the future and understand the need for a greater focus on learning to find their place. Again, that hit home for me. I believe this return from the isolation of classmates and teachers will spark a renewed desire to work together and share ideas as never before. Teachers are our community's most precious resources for our children. They have undoubtedly faced the greatest challenge of their careers during this pandemic. My hat goes off to them, my gloves, everything, because I know, I see it firsthand, and I just can't say that enough. That challenge will continue with in-person learning as schools and classrooms have a much different look from the one they last taught in. Please continue to provide our educators with the tools and resources to safeguard these schools, as we will all witness a higher level of teaching and learning that will be spoken of for years to come. I wish you well, and I thank you for your time. Please know that Hampton Sheriff's Office will continue to be a team, and we are here to support you in any way, any effort that we can. Again, I thank you for your time. My hat goes off to school board members, our community, and certainly our teachers. Thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers, have you received any other requests?
I have not.
Okay. At this time, I am going to close the public hearing for this evening for the FY22 budget, and we will now move on to superintendent and staff reports, and I will turn it over to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the school board. At this time, Ms. Dortch will come forward and provide members of the board and certainly the viewing audience with just a very brief update at this particular point. I don't think that we have any significant changes, but I will leave that to our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Dortch, to provide that overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Good evening, Chair Kilgore, Vice Chair Woodhouse, school board members, and the Hampton City Schools community. The fiscal year 2022 proposed budget was presented on March 3rd of 2021, and subsequent to that presentation, the presentation, budget book, and other budget information has been made available to the public and can be found on the division's website on the budget information page. On yesterday, the Virginia Department of Education released the direct calculation template, and within that template, based on our review, we noted no significant changes from what was presented last week. We may have to look at potentially moving a program's revenue and expenditures to another fund, but right now we do not know if we'll need to do that at this point. And we may not know until later on in the budget development process or even going into next school year as the Virginia Department of Education releases new information. So with that, right now we don't have any significant updates to the proposed budget, but if there are any changes, if necessary, we will provide those at next week's school board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dortch. We now move on to...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I've got a
Yes.
comment if I could. Okay, on the budget.
You got a question about it?
Yes.
It's on deliberation as well, but go.
No, it's a comment.
Okay. Okay.
In listening to Ms. Dortch and her saying there are no more significant changes, you know, we've been through COVID. We've dealt with funding streams. We've dealt with funding droplets. And as Sheriff Bowden just said, in order to be successful, you have to be creative. And I just want to commend Dr. Smith and his team for the creative approaches that they have taken to this budget, because it was no easy task, as we all know, even with our household budgets. But I think it's also important to point out just a couple of things. Out in this budget, we're looking at a 5% compensation increase for employees. That is significant in a time where we have experienced for at least 12 months a downturn in pretty much everything. In addition to that, we're adding $1.5 million to the teacher scale adjustment. And the reason that's significant is that that's in addition to the raise that's being proposed. Then when you look at the money that is being used to increase our funding for our school bus drivers, our bus attendants, the bus lot attendants, the bus dispatchers, the shop attendant, all of that to increase with the $2 an hour. We're adding $500,000 just to ensure that that's done. And I'm hearing from the Amen corner over here with Ms. Tina Banks Gray going, because that's significant. And then you got close to $500,000 that's going to increase the salaries for your security officers, your secretaries, your school finance officer pay. And I just think it speaks volumes when a school division can show you that it values, because I heard somebody say one time, you'll know what a school division values by where it puts its money. And this shows that this division values human capital. And that is very important, not only for Hampton City Schools, but also for our community. And I just want to end by saying, you know, we've got some of the finest employees in Hampton City Schools. And I think with what this budget group has done with Dr. Smith's guidance and people like Dr. Caggiano and Dr. Raymond Haynes and Dr. Anita Owens and all of them, they have worked so hard to make sure that people know that we value them. And I just wanted to make a point of that, Mr. Chair, because I can't speak for other school divisions, but I think I can speak for Hampton City Schools when I say, as a board member, I'm especially proud that we didn't just talk the talk, we are walking the walk, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry. We now move on to section 6 of our meeting, which is deliberation. And the first item on deliberation is the superintendent's proposed budget for FY22. Do I have any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Samuels.
Thank you so much, Chairman Kilgore. I really wanted to say something about, make a comment last week during the budget presentation, because I found the budget to be extremely valuable. And when we're talking about our staff members and our teachers, and to look from where we came from in 2014 when Dr. Smith first came on board, and if you look at the projection over the last 7 years, and you look at it, the data, you can see what his focus was all about. It was all about teachers. You saw that in the raises, the incremental raises that occurred. And unfortunately, at that time, we could not offer a significant increase and so forth. But take into consideration also, Ms. Cherry, and I know you alluded to this earlier in conversation that you and I have had. This past February, Dr. Smith and Brittany Dorch and the remainder of the team, including Vizel, made sure that teachers got a $750 bonus. In addition to that, a 2% increase. That's demonstrating to our staff and our community that we value the work that you do. Secondly, I've been reading the newspaper, and what comes across is that other localities are not committed to the 5%. If you look at what's going on. Although it was presented by General Assembly for 5%, it's up to the school division to follow that recommendation.
That's right.
And even before that was presented in the newspaper, Dr. Smith and his staff made sure that we were committed to that 5%. So that should demonstrate where this board and the superintendent resides as it relates to our commitment to our teachers, to our staff, the bus drivers, custodian, and so forth and so on. I would like to also highlight that many years ago, a few years ago, when the board had to make that very awful decision to cut the supplement to our athletic staff, it was hurtful. And now that we are replacing that 12%, if I'm correct, Dr. Smith?
That's correct.
A 12% increase to the supplement that our athletic staff receive. That's a game changer right there. It says that we are committed to every single Hampton City School staff. You're important, and we are willing to do whatever it takes. If we say whatever it takes, every day, whatever it takes for every child, it also demonstrates that we're doing every day, whatever it takes for our staff, including teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samuels. Any other comments?
Just one, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Again, piggybacking on what Mr. Samuel said, I think it's important to note as well, since 2016, if you look at the increases we have given our teachers since 2016, with this one, we're looking at 17%.
Yeah.
17%. That is major. And as Mr. Samuel said, it's the human capital. You can't, when you find good people, you have to do what you can to keep them. Now, what we're doing is far less than the superintendent has stated that he wants to do, but we can only do what we can do. But we're committed to making a change. We're committed to making sure that people understand in this school division that when we say we value you, we put our money where our mouth is.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry. Any comments from our student representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would likewise endorse this board and our superintendent's vision of maintaining that compensation increase, and that, again, like Mr. Samuels was saying, that underscores our dedication to attracting and retaining high-quality instructional personnel, teachers and staff. And that must be done to serve our mission. I reflect and endorse the commendations which were previously made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Karnick. We now move on to item 6.02, student fees for 2021/2022 school year. Any comments, questions? Student rep, any?
Yes, just a few quick questions about the fee schedule. First of all, I'm noticing that the fee for band instrument rental is eliminated. Very good. I commend that. Second, I want to focus on the elimination of the Culinary Arts cost fee and the Wood Lab construction fees. Did those fees previously cover Academies of Hampton instructional activities?
I'll look to Ms. Dortch to.
Ms. Dortch or Dr. Haynes, you want to respond?
So so for the Culinary Arts cost fee and the Wood Lab construction fee, when those funds existed prior to their elimination this year, did they cover in the classroom Academies of Hampton instructional activities?
Yes.
Okay, so those fees are just simply being absorbed into the Academies of Hampton instruction? Is that an accurate impression?
So no, for those fees, so the Culinary Arts, we have a grant that will cover that fee, so there's no need to charge students. And then for the Wood Lab fee, that is just incorporated within the school's local instructional fund account.
Okay.
Ms. Dortch, I didn't hear your response to the second question about.
The Wood Lab?
Yes.
Yes, so that is just absorbed within the school's instructional funds budget.
Okay.
All right. That concludes my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We now move on to item 6.03, deliberation of the 2021 Tech 2022 school calendar and the 2022 Tech 2023 planning calendar. Any comments, questions? This item, oh, yes.
Yes,
Ms.
Mr.
Banks
Chair.
Gray.
Yes, it has come to my attention by several Jewish community leaders and citizens that the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is on September the 7th, is the same day as our proposed first day of school. And yes, I know at our last meeting, we were provided information on how students will not be penalized if their parents or guardians actually supply a letter regarding their religious observance. It is a fact that several localities have moved their date to after the 7th of September to allow all students the beneficial experience of the first day of school. So I just wanted to bring that to mind to everyone in our community, that it is a truly important date to our Jewish community.
Thank you, Ms. Banks Gray. Any comments, other comments from board members? Student rep?
Yeah, question regarding the pre-Labor Day calendar. In the previous meeting last week, I asked how the reason for the pre-Labor Day school end date, how that very closely aligned with the post-Labor Day start end date, both being around, I believe it was June 15th and 17th in that week. So does the pre-Labor Day draft calendar, does that end date reflect that we use all our banked days? That was the answer I got last week. If Hampton City Schools operates pre-Labor Day, they start pre-Labor Day, and no banked instructional days are used, will the end date remain the same for the 21-22 year?
Yeah, we're able to make that adjustment. So as a footnote to the calendar, the school board provides the superintendent with the flexibility to make those adjustments. And so if we really don't use those particular days, we're able to really make the adjustment. And we typically notify families and then certainly faculty and staff if we're making an adjustment to the end of the school calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question.
All right. Okay, we now move on to items for action, section 7 of our meeting. And we only have one item on the agenda this evening. It's the resolution for VSBA Business Honor Roll, honoring Kroger and Old Point National Bank. Do I have a motion to approve the action?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Jackson Afanja and I believe a second from Mr. Samuels.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Bowers, would you please call for the vote?
Ms. Cherry?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Dr. Woodhouse?
Aye.
Ms. Afanja?
Aye.
Ms. Banks Gray?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye, the motion carries. We now move on to informational items. Just quickly, our next public hearing on the FY22 budget will be held at 6:30. So next Wednesday, March 17th, here at Jones Magnet Middle School. And then the following week, the board is scheduled to vote on the FY22 budget, which is March 24th, again, here at Jones Magnet Middle School at 6:30. Do I have any informational items from the superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just one informational item, and I would ask that Ms. Gorel, if you would share the informational item.
So this week, March 8th through 12th, is actually this week. It's an annual opportunity to celebrate our school nutrition staff and their commitment to ensuring students start their day ready to learn. We know breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day. Additionally, March marks 1 year since the pandemic outbreak in which schools across Virginia shifted to virtual learning, requiring nutrition departments to pivot literally overnight and adapt their meal systems to curbside pickups and sometimes neighborhood deliveries. So our Director of Nutrition Services, Ms. Edwina Forrest, and her team are true heroes as they have been on the front line since day one. So tonight, we would like to recognize Ms. Edwina Forrest and present her a School Meals Hero Trophy that Dr. Smith will bring down to her. And this trophy is from the No Kid Hungry Virginia. And Ms. Steely, who is the Associate Director of No Kid Hungry, also passes along her gratitude to Ms. Forrest and her team for their tireless commitment to food access and educational equity. And before I finish, I'd also love to share that Ms. Forrest was surprised last week with a People Taking Action Award from WTKR. The segment aired on News 3 yesterday evening, and if you have not had the opportunity to view the piece, I encourage you to do so, as it truly captures Ms. Forrest's passion for feeding our young people. And I'm not much of a crier, and it brought tears to my eyes when she received the award last week, and then I cried again when I watched it again this morning. So it's truly a touching piece. So thank you, Ms. Forrest.
Congrats. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for that opportunity as part of our informational.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, and very well deserved, Ms. Forrest. I now ask if I have any informational item from board members or from our student representative.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Gorel brought up a very good point, which was that this board meeting will be closest to March 13th, which is this Saturday, and which commemorates the 1 year to the day since Governor Northam announced the initial 2-week period of school cancellation, which was later extended to the rest of the year. This is a date which is known to all of us, but in the year that has transpired since then, I'd like to commend our superintendent, this board, our faculty and staff, and our students for adapting to the very sudden change. It was for how short of notice we were given on that drastic of a change at the time. Our staff bounced back very quickly, our teachers, our instructional staff, and we had, through Google Classroom and other platforms, a virtual instructional system operating very quickly, within the context of developments at that time. So again, I would like to, commend students, staff, teachers, parents, and our division leadership for certainly progressing through an eventful year and making it as successful as it can be during these trying times. Thank you, and students, teachers, staff, keep pushing forward. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and because you have made it happen for the last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karnick. Any other comments, informational items? Yes, Ms. Banks Gray.
I was able to, was it yesterday, day before yesterday? I was able to attend the commitment to graduate. It was my first ceremony for a class of 2024 graduates from the Hampton Wall-to-Wall Academies. An amazing ceremony. The inspiring Dr. Adolph Brown spoke to the class and told them to, show up, cheer up, stay up, listen up, and lift up. Just absolutely motivating. The students heard from Hampton City Schools faculty, staff, administrators, the parents, and the community. They pledged to do their best to support the actual class of 2024 and demonstrating their greatness and achieving academic excellence. The students were challenged to envision their greatness in themselves and seize every opportunity that they could as they came to them. So kudos to everyone that was involved with the ceremony. The ceremony was phenomenal. I think that was led by our very own Dr. Haynes and Ms. Veronica Hurst. So kudos to everyone that was involved. I was thoroughly impressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Banks Gray. All right, with no other business to come before this board, this meeting is adjourned.